said, because I look at a lot of TikTok and it's great sometimes, and then it eats away at your brain at other times. It was just this thing that was like, try to avoid, I think it was called like a dread scheduling. And I didn't look into it, but I was like, I try to live my life by having as few things on the calendar that I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I bet you have the ability to like have a life that's like dread free, minus like you got to go to the dentist or something.
Yeah, I don't have very many dreads.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of happiness is like just not booking the thing that you kind of don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, once you're fortunate enough to be able to do that, the key is to not slide into dread just for financial gain, because you're not even going to notice that money. What you'll notice is your time being, used in a way that you don't want. And sometimes people, can't see the forest for the trees, and they just focus on money instead of focusing on I just want to avoid doing things that suck.
Right. I say this to comics all the time. Like, when you start, it shouldn't be about the money. And I'm saying that as a person who started like with a normal day job that like wasn't cool and it was a pain in the ass to get to. And you do comedy because you love doing it. And I had no idea the potential or how much money you could make. I didn't know anything about the pay structure for that kind of stuff. But it should be you're doing your art because you love it. That's part of just being an artist. You get into private wealth management because you want to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Not for the art of it.
Yeah, that's the problem with money things. Like equity funds and private wealth management and stock traders. It's like the whole end goal is to accumulate numbers. It's not to create a product that's going to enrich people's lives or be exciting for people to, consume. No, it's like you're just trying to rack up numbers. That's a fucking empty pursuit in and of itself. I mean, it's just a weird thing. You're just, and you're never happy unless you make more every year than you did the previous year. Nobody ever says like, hey, I'm locked into a pretty reasonable living, and
Right.
so I'm just going to keep that going.
I'm going to maintain that. Well, let me
Yeah.
ask you this. Even though it's your show, let me ask you this, because I get asked this all the time, and I always hate the question because for many reasons, but like, do you have career goals beyond this? Or are you like, I did it, I'm good?
I never had any career goals. Legitimately.
Right.
I didn't. I just like doing things.
Right.
And then the things that I like to do, I try to do them my best.
Right.
That's
the
my
healthy
career.
answer.
Yeah.
I think that's a similar answer to mine.
Because if I just decided that I have some fucking grandiose goal, like where is that going? Like, and what if I achieve that? I'm gonna do another one and just keep pushing further and further. I think that's madness. I think you lose your fucking mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think life is a temporary situation, and you should enjoy as much of it as possible. And I think that one of the ways that I find that I enjoy it as much as possible is if I do things that are intriguing, that are difficult and complex, and where they're challenging. And so I overcome obstacles, and I figure things out, and I get better at stuff, whether it's communicating with people or there's doing stand-up or whatever you do. I like challenging, interesting things, fascinating things.
You do. I think you've built, whether you realize that from the beginning or that's become a thing, I think you've built a life that really is around those things.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this podcast is. It's not like a show about like feelings and baking. Like, this is interesting people, maybe me as a guest excluded, and interesting topics and the pursuit of that information.
Yeah, it's like, what am I interested in? I mean, the only people I have on are people I either like you, or people that I think I want to talk to, because I think, they have an interesting topic that they're pursuing, or some documentary or a book they wrote or something. It's like I only have people on that I'm interested in talking to.
Sure.
I don't have anybody telling me who to have on.
That's I think the toughest part about podcasts is the guest booking, and then like in the beginning where you're just like, I gotta interview this person, and like you're like, I don't care what they have to say, and you still have to do the interview.
I've avoided that.
You have.
In the beginning, even there was a lot of people that tried to get on the podcast that I'm not interested in. I just said no. And so I've had even confrontations with some people that want to be on. I'm like, I don't want to have you on.
Oh, they've come up to you and been like, I gotta get on.
Yeah, that's the best way to never have me on, or never have me have you
to get
on.
in your face.
Yeah, like, Jesus Christ. Do you think like being confrontational is going to help?
I've had to do. Sometimes I've had a lot of great interviews, but sometimes I'm being interviewed, and I can tell they barely know who I am, and I certainly don't want to be there. And I'm under my keyboard. I'm just like squeezing my thigh, because I want to be like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Please don't ask me about balancing it all. Please don't ask me how I got into comedy. You don't care, and I don't care.
Well, they don't know what to ask.
Well, not everybody should have a fucking podcast. I'm serious. Everybody has one, and not everybody. There is an art to interviewing. Like earlier when I forgot what I was saying, you weren't like, let's see, you were talking about you just sat there and let me stew. And there's an art to that.
Well, I was hoping you would come up with a thought.
Yeah.
I just gave you the chance. I didn't want to like talk
elegant.
over you. Because if I talked over you, then you'd never get it. You know, when someone starts talking over you when you're trying to think of things, then you're just reacting to them talking. You're never going to get it.
I talk over. It's a bad quality of mine. And I understand. I acknowledge that.
It's a normal quality, particularly for someone who talks for a living, because you're good at it. So you always have words that you have at the tip of your tongue that you can get out. Sometimes it's a harder thing for comics when they're communicating with people is to just let that person talk. And it's definitely a learned skill. And I'm definitely like way better at it now than I was when I first started.
I'm not saying you weren't good at it before, but like I get interviewed a lot. I think there are hosts that are good at it. I think you're good at it. I think Jimmy Kimmel gives like an elegant interview. There are certain people, and just because I did that recently, I'm thinking about that. But there really is an art to it. And I actually, the older I get, and maybe it is since having a baby, the less I want to volunteer. And like you're not, when I talk to you, you're not ever like over enthused. Like you kind of just hang back and you listen. Like you have less to prove. I like that. I like to be like that, I think is the cooler way to be versus like, yeah, also something else. I think there's like a calmness to it that I don't think I naturally have. I think I'm like not very intense, but intense enough.
You're pretty intense. But that's passionate.
Okay. Yeah.
That's, you have your thoughts and your opinions, and it's not like you're closed-minded to other people's opinions. But you're very strong-willed, and you have your ideas.
Willful.
Yeah.
Yeah.